Join me in the Word today in Numbers 15, verse 17 through 1640. The Lord instructed Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, after you enter the land where I am bringing you, you are to offer a contribution to the Lord. When you eat from the food of the land, you are to offer a loaf from your first batch of dough as a contribution. Offer it just like a contribution from the threshing floor. Throughout your generations, you are to give the Lord a contribution from the first batch of the dough. When you sin unintentionally and do not obey all these commands that the Lord spoke to Moses, all that the Lord has commanded you through Moses from the day the Lord issued the commands and onward throughout your generations. And if it was done unintentionally, without the community's awareness, and the entire community is to prepare one young bull for a burnt offering as a pleasing aroma to the Lord, with its grain offering and drink offering according to the regulation, and one male goat as a sin offering. The priest will then make atonement for the entire Israelite community, so they may be forgiven. For the sin was unintentional. They are to bring their offering, one made by fire, to the Lord, and their sin offering before the Lord for the unintentional sin. The entire Israelite community and the alien who resides among them will be forgiven, since it happened to all people unintentionally." You know, when you think about the extent to which sin can affect your lives, and then you think about the fact that, yeah, there's the active sins. I know this is wrong. I know what I'm doing is wrong. Still do it. Romans Road right there of, I hate my flesh for making me do these things that I said I would never do. Then there's the sins that you don't even know you're committing. Whether it's you haven't studied enough or whether it's an accident. God still provides forgiveness. If one person sins unintentionally, he is to present a year-old female goat as a sin offering. The priest will then make atonement before the Lord on behalf of the person who acts in error, sinning unintentionally. And when he makes atonement for him, he will be forgiven. You are to have the same law for the person who acts in error, whether he is an Israelite or an alien who resides among you. But the person who acts defiantly, whether native or resident alien, blasphemes the Lord. The person is to be cut off from his people. He will certainly be cut off because he has despised the Lord's word and broken his command. His guilt remains on him. While the Israelites were in the wilderness, they found a man gathering wood on the Sabbath day. Those who found him gathering wood brought him to Moses and Aaron and the entire community. They placed him in custody because it had not been decided what should be done to him. Then the Lord said to Moses, "The man is to be put to death. The entire community is to stone him outside the camp." So the entire community brought him outside the camp and stoned him to death as the Lord commanded Moses. That is a severity for breaking the Sabbath that I don't think we think about the requirements of rest nowadays. I was having a conversation with someone the other day about how we as a people, or not we as a people, but how there are commands to us to rest, and that it is very, very important in our lives. To the point where the Lord even commands us to let the ground rest. You know, cycles of 7 years, and on the seventh year you don't plant or sow or harvest anything from the land. And one of the statements that I said as I was talking with this friend is like, if you apply that knowledge and logic to yourself, like, People today can barely give themselves a day off, let alone a year. Like, we are so devoted to this. I'm going this way, this direction. I'm heading there constantly. And then we forget that we can trust that God's going to provide in times. And we're called to rest, and not just rest, but rest in Him. And I think rest is what breeds the fruit of the Spirit in our lives. Tiredness is a poison to the Spirit. The excuses we make in our tiredness, the way that we almost brag about our work ethic. And I'm going to throw on some music before I continue. I totally forgot to do that earlier. Perfect. Tiredness is something that if we don't choose to rest, if we don't choose to embrace the Lord and trust Him, it's something that'll ravage your spiritual, emotional, and physical life. Like, tiredness is something that will destroy you. It will rob you of the joy in the good things. It will, take away the value in the hard work that you're doing, because it's going to, one, be miserable, and two, it's going to be less good. Working with people, working with objects, whatever you're working with, if you're tired, your attention to those details, your attention to that person will drop. I was listening to, maybe it was Joe Rogan, I don't know. But it was someone on the podcast was talking about the expression of the number of people that won't have health side effects after getting a consistent less than 6 hours of sleep, when rounded to a number, is 0. In the population, less than 6 hours of sleep. If you say that it's not going to have health drawbacks on you, the portion of the population that's true, rounded to a number, is 0. And God, from the beginning, when the world was perfect, instituted rest. So, sometimes I'm reading through the Old Testament, and I see the severity of breaking the laws. Like, this is, a man was stoned to death. And I think about, why would that happen? Like, I know that wouldn't happen in today's society. What's the difference between this and today? And I don't know if it's just the historic period of the world, like trying to weed out these, the chaff from the wheat. If you think about the amount of people in Israel, and how many times God is like, you just need to clean your people, because there's corruption and it's going to spread evil. And the old expression, one bad apple will spoil the whole batch. It can be true. And so I think this might be an expression of the seriousness to follow these rules in our lives, as something that we don't think about today. Agreed with the rest/work ethic. Nothing is wrong with hard work, but it comes with a price tag of having to rest, or you can't enjoy the harvest when it comes. Absolutely. And I'm not saying don't work hard. Like, I don't want that to come across. Definitely. There's so many verses that talk about working hard. But what I'm saying is the combination of working hard and resting hard is what is going to breathe joy and peace and patience. Patience! Because the fruit of the Spirit, and I mentioned this so many times, like, as you continue to watch, you'll see how much I mention the fruit of the Spirit. But the reality of the fruit of the Spirit is it is a promise from God in our lives that if we are following Him, we will exhibit these things. And that's why I bring it up as much as I do. And I don't think the fruit of the Spirit can separate from each other. It's not the fruits of the Spirit, it's the fruit. Because the fruit is one thing. It is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. And whatever the other ones are. I always forget. So, if you are not living in such a way that your physical body is healthy, it will affect you emotionally and spiritually because we are connected in that way. So, rest will help character. It will help righteousness. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them that throughout their generations they are to make tassels for the corners of their garments, and put a blue cord on the tassel at each corner. These will serve as tassels for you to look at, so that you may remember all the Lord's commands and obey them, and not prostitute yourselves by following your own heart and your own eyes." That verse right there is contradictory to so many of modern philosophies of how you're going to find happiness. He literally says, and this is severe language right here. These will serve as tassels for you to look at, so that you will remember all of the Lord's commands and obey them, and not prostitute yourself by following your own heart and your own eyes. Now, if we are coming before the Lord and we are genuinely following Him, that comes with a required understanding that God created not just the foundations of the universe, but created the universe, right? In that creation, it means that He instituted the order of the world. And all of the scriptural advice that He gives us is in line with the way that He created the universe. This blows my mind when I think about it. He gave us the instructional guide of how to succeed here. And His warning is, follow the commands. Don't prostitute yourselves to your own heart and your own eyes. Pursuing happiness is wonderful, but happiness is nothing to joy, and joy comes as a fruit of the Spirit. This way you will remember and obey all my commands and be holy to your God. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God. More names. Gotta love it. Great. Okay, here we go. Now Korah, son of Izhar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, son of Dathan, and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took 250 prominent Israelite men, who were leaders of the community and representatives in the assembly, and they rebelled against Moses. They came together against Moses and Aaron and told them, "You've gone too far. Everyone in the community is holy, and the Lord is among them. Why do you exalt yourselves above the Lord's assembly?" When Moses heard this, he fell face down. Then he said to Korah and his followers, "Tomorrow morning the Lord will reveal who belongs to him, who is set apart, and one he will let come near him. He will let the one he chooses come near him. Korah, you and your followers are to do this. Take fire pans, and tomorrow place the fire in them and put incense on them before the Lord. The man the Lord chooses will be the one who is set apart. It is you Levites who have gone too far. Moses also told Korah, "Now listen, Levites. Isn't it enough for you that God of Israel has separated you from the Israelite community to bring you near to himself, to perform the work at the Lord's tabernacle, and to stand before the community to minister to them? He has brought you near, and all your fellow Levites are with you. But you are pursuing the priesthood as well. Therefore, it is you and your followers who have conspired against the Lord. As for Aaron, who is he that you should complain about him?" Moses sent for Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, but they said, "We will not come. It is not enough that you brought us up from the land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness. Do you have to appoint yourself as ruler over us? Furthermore, you didn't bring us to the land flowing with milk and honey or give us an inheritance of fields or vineyards. Will you gouge out the eyes of these men? We will not come." Then Moses became angry and said to them, "Don't respect their offering." Or said to the Lord, "Don't respect their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them or mistreated a single one of them." So Moses told Korah, "You and all your followers are to appear before the Lord tomorrow. You, they, and Aaron. Each of you is to take his fire pan, place incense on it, and present the fire pan to the Lord. 250 fire pans. You and Aaron are each to present your fire pan also." Each man took his fire pan, placed fire in it, put incense on it, and stood at the entrance of the tent of meeting, along with Moses and Aaron. After Korah assembled the whole community against them at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the glory of the Lord appeared to the whole community. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, "Separate yourselves for this community so that I may consume them instantly." But Moses and Aaron fell face down and said, God who gives breath to all, when one man sins, will you vent your wrath on the whole community?" And the Lord replied to Moses, "Tell the community, get away from the dwelling of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." Moses got up, and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. He warned the community, "Get away from the tents of those wicked men. Don't touch anything that belongs to them, or you will be swept away because of their sins." So they got away from the dwellings of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Meanwhile, Dathan and Abiram came out and stood at the entrance of their tents with their wives and children and infants. Then Moses said, "This is how you will know that the Lord sent me to do all these things, that it is not my own will. If these men die naturally as all people would and suffer the fate of all, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something unprecedented," that's a word right there. "If the Lord brings about something unprecedented, and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them along with all their belongings with them, so they go down alive into Sheol, then you will know that these men have despised the Lord." Just as he finished speaking all these words, the ground beneath them split open, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households and all Korah's people and all of his possessions. They went down alive to Sheol, with all that belonged to them. And then the earth closed over them. They vanished from the assembly. At their cries, all the people of Israel who were around them fled because they thought, "The earth may swallow us too." Fire also came out of the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were presenting their incense. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, "Tell Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, to remove the fire pans from the burning debris, because they are holy, and scatter the fire far away. As for the fire pans of those who have sinned at the cost of their own lives, make them into hammered sheets as plating for the altar. For they presented them before the Lord, and the fire pans are holy. They will be assigned to the Israelites." So the priest Eleazar took the bronze fire pans that those who were burned had presented, and they were hammered into plating for the altar, just as the Lord commanded him through Moses. It was a reminder for the Israelites that no unauthorized person outside the lineage of Aaron should approach and offer incense before the Lord and become like Korah and his followers. That is some thick verses right there. Pride. It cannot stand in the presence of the Lord. Pride is foolishness. It is an abandonment of objective reality. Pride is the assumption that I know better than God. Pride is me saying to him, I know what I can do. If we go back, it's literally saying to him, I'm going to follow my heart and my eyes. You know, it's something that even earlier in this story, if we go back to Egypt itself, Moses, in his timing, in his pride, even knowing his calling, did what he did outside of the correct timing. And he wound up in the wilderness for it. The Israelites, thinking they knew better than God, pride. Spreading rumors that the land wasn't going to provide for them, or that it was dangerous and they shouldn't go in there because they thought they knew better, pride. Korah and his followers saying to Moses, how dare you appoint yourself among us? A blatant disregard for the calling that God has put on his life. Saying that they knew that they would do better. Pride. When I look at my own life, and when you look at your life, where's your pride? I know it's there. I know it's there for me, and I'm fairly certain it's there for you somewhere. Where are we assuming that we know better than the Lord? Where are you assuming that this is going to make you happier? That God doesn't have your best interest? Where is your pride? I know I have some. If I were to try and verbalize where my pride is, I think it would be There have been times where I just need to be right. And sometimes I know I'm right and I just need other people's to know. And that's a toxic behavior. The reality of that situation is that regardless of whether I'm right or not, if I am right and I know I'm right, accepting that and embracing that without needing others to know would be a portion of humility, I suppose. I don't know. That's a really interesting thought. But if I'm talking about very specific example, I talk about it all the time, that mission trip I went on a few years ago, I thought I knew better than Jesus. Being called explicitly not to go and then going anyway. And that definitely didn't bring me anything other than distraught. Father, reveal my pride to me. Reveal it to us. God, work in our hearts. Lord, you know better than I or than anyone here. Build trust in our hearts. Okay, that was it for Numbers. We are going to head to the New Testament now. Come on. I don't know why this just bothers me when the ribbon doesn't sit flat. Okay. Going to Mark. Chapter 15, verse 1 through verse 47. Jesus faces Pilate. As soon as it was morning, having held a meeting with the elders, scribes, and the whole Sanhedrin, the chief priests tied Jesus up and led him away and handed him over to Pilate. So Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him, "You say so." And the chief priests accused him of many things. Pilate questioned him again. "Aren't you going to answer? Look how many things they're accusing you of." But Jesus still did not answer. And so Pilate was amazed. At the festival, Pilate used to release the people a prisoner whom they requested. There was one named Barabbas, who was in prison with the rebels, who had committed murder during the rebellion. The crowd came up and began to ask Pilate to do for them as was custom. Pilate answered them, "Do you want me to release the king of the Jews for you?" For he knew it was because of envy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd so that he would release Barabbas to them instead. Pilate asked them again, "Then what do you want me to do with this one who you call King of the Jews?" And again they shouted, "Crucify him." Pilate said to them, "Why? What has he done wrong?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." Wanting to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them, and after having Jesus flogged, he handed him over to be crucified. The soldiers led him away into the palace, that is the governor's residence, and called the whole company together. They dressed him in purple robe, twisted together a crown of thorns, and put it on him. And they began to salute him. "Hail, King of the Jews!" They were hitting him on the head with a stick and spitting on him. Getting down on their knees, they were paying him homage. After they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple robe and put his clothes on him. They led him out to crucify him, and they forced a man coming in from the country who was passing by to carry Jesus' cross. He was Simon, the Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. They brought Jesus to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. They tried to give him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. Then they crucified him and divided his clothes, casting lots for them to decide what each would get. Now it was 9 in the morning when they crucified him. The inscription on the charge written against him was, "The King of the Jews." They crucified 2 criminals with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by were yelling insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "Ha! The one who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days? Save yourself by coming down from that cross." In the same way, the chief priests with the scribes were mocking him among themselves and saying, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down now from that cross, so we may see and believe." Even those who were crucified with him taunted him. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And at 3, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," which is translated, my God, why have you abandoned me?" When some of those standing here heard this, they said, "See, he's calling for Elijah." Someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, fixed it on a stick, and offered him a drink, and said, "Let's see if Elijah comes down to take him down." Jesus let out a loud cry and breathed his last. Then the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. When the centurion who was standing opposite him saw the way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." There were also women watching from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and the younger of James the younger, and of, I don't know how to say that name, Joseph, and Salome. In Galilee, these women followed him and took care of him. Many other women had come up with him to Jerusalem. When it was already evening, because it was the day of preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a prominent member of the Sanhedrin, who himself, looking forward to the kingdom of God, came and boldly went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Pilate was surprised that he was already dead. Summoning the centurion, he asked him whether he had already died. When he found out from the centurion, he gave the corpse to Joseph. After he brought some linen cloth, Joseph took him and wrapped him in linen. And he laid him in a tomb cut out of a rock and rolled a stone against the entrance of that tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, mother of Joseph, were watching where he was laid. The death of Jesus. It's something that's hard for me to even imagine sitting there. The darkness, the centurion, what he would have seen to say what he did. And also it's beautiful, the way that that sacrifice was committed for our behalf. Please, Ribbon, please be straight. I do not want to close the Bible until you are. There we go. Oh well. We are going back to Psalm 54 to be exact. Relatively short psalm today. Prayer for deliverance. I'm sure my friend Ike right now, I said that, and in his mind he's just hearing deliverance. The song from what's the name of that movie? Oh shoot, what is it? I forget it. Oh well. God, save me by your name, and vindicate me by your might. God, hear my prayer. Listen to the words from my mouth. For strangers rise up against me, and violent men intend to kill me. They do not let God guide them. God is my helper. The Lord is my sustainer of my life. He will repay my adversaries for their evil. Because of your faithlessness, annihilate them. No, excuse me. Because of your faithfulness, annihilate them. I will sacrifice a free will offering to you. I will praise your name, Lord, because it is good. For he has rescued me from every trouble, and my eye has looked down on my enemies. Deliverance. And finally, we move to Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 11, verses 5 and 6. The righteousness of the blameless clears his path, but the wicked person will fall because of his wickedness. The righteousness of the upright rescues them, but the treacherous are trapped by their own desires. Oh, just two, okay. The righteousness of the blameless clears his path, but the wicked person will fall because of his wickedness. The righteousness of the upright rescues them, but the treacherous are trapped by their own desire. I think that goes back once again to what I was talking about earlier. The pursuit of one's own heart, one's own eyes, is that pride that is a direct connection to wickedness. And they are trapped in it because they believe that their desires, their happiness, are the true sustainer in their life. The righteousness of the upright rescues them, but the treacherous are trapped by their own desires. We've been freed from that. We've been freed. The door is open, and you just have to walk through it. And that can be hard sometimes. It's kind of like the same for forgiveness. This is advice I've given to a few people. And the reality of forgiveness is that you think that forgiveness is you have that person in your basement and there's a pit and you've trapped them at the bottom of that pit in your basement. And forgiveness is letting them up out of the pit and then letting them leave. When in reality, true forgiveness is realizing that you're the one at the bottom of the pit and there's a ladder and all you have to do is climb out. It's the same with so many things in our faith. The reality is God has freed you. When you embrace Him, you're justified. When you come to Him, you are loved. And we trap ourselves in these ideas of, I have to be this or I have to do this. And the reality of all we're doing is the jail cell is open and we're sitting there looking directly at God through an open door saying, why don't you free me? Walk out of your jail cell. Walk into His arms. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I know that this is a little bit shorter than some of the other ones I've done, but it's Saturday. Go enjoy your day off. Have a wonderful day of rest. Embrace your time with the Lord. Before I let you go, I am going to pray for us, and then I will end the stream. So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the people that were here with me. God, would you bless them today? Bless them with rest, with peace, with patience, with kindness, gentleness, self-control. Give them the fruit of the Spirit today. God, let us walk behind your appointed leaders. If we are your appointed leaders, Lord, let us lead in the way you've called, but God, reveal your calling to us. Let us know without a doubt what you're hoping that we will do, what you want to do with us, through us, for us, in us. Jesus, thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. I am the Vow. I will be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. reading more scripture. I hope you join me then, and I hope you enjoyed just being here. Thank you very much, and have a fantastic day.